Have you ever wondered what you will amount to? Well, if you have, you're going to want to watch today's episode. On The Awakening Show, we have the lovely Deanna Nunez. Deanna is a hypnotist. She has been hypnotizing people on stages globally for going on 3 decades now. She's also an executive coach, and she has helped thousands of executives get to the next level and break through their limitations. So make sure to stick around for the next episode of The Awakening Show. Hey, Deanna, welcome to The Awakening Show. I'm so excited to have you today.
I'm excited to be here. It's bright and early in the morning, and what a lovely way to start the day.
I love your vibrant energy. Energy is something you and I both talk a lot about. And I know we've dived in a few times, but this time it's a little bit different. This time we are going to be talking about something that really came up for me just in the last 6 months. It was something that I was not aware of. Oftentimes on the Awakening Show, we're talking about the programming and the wiring that happened early on in our lives and how much it shapes who we become, what we achieve, and really how much it holds us back. But it was about 6 months ago that I learned that mine actually goes deeper than childhood. Mine goes to other generations. I learned about something called epigenetics. And through this process, it made me see how deeply the stories of scarcity, the stories of fear, the stories of, like everything's falling apart are not just because of what I experienced in childhood, but because of what happened to my father, my grandparents in the Holocaust, and what's happened to Jewish families in Russia, for centuries. And so today we're going to be diving into these stories that we tell and where they're from and how to break free from them. And before we dive in, I just wanted to have you share a little bit about your story because you as well have a childhood that you had a lot of adversity. I mean, this is where your fire was born. This is where you really connected to the passion of transforming yourself and transforming lives. So can you share with our audience a little bit about you before we dive into, the stories we tell?
I actually just found out too that I have ancestors from Russia. So I love that you said that. We've never talked about that before.
Yeah.
Um, so to me, I think the fire is born in us before the stories we tell. And it's the fire that makes us want to overcome it.
Yeah.
Um, for
I
me,
love that.
growing up in a very white Christian household, middle income, what we would think of as just, the cookie cutter picket fence upbringing. And my parents got divorced when I was 3 years old. The actual divorce didn't happen until 7 years later of fighting in court. So I was actually 10 by the time they actually got divorced. But, when we are at the age of 0 to 8 or 10 years old, and this has been proven through science at this point, that our minds are very subjective. And so we're taking in. And it's during that period of time is what we call our programming. This is nothing new at now in this modern day of age that people know. But what do we do with that? Right? We now have a better understanding of neuroscience. We have a better understanding of psychology, how it all develops. But what do we do with it is really what matters, is that we take new actions. And for me, I learned that growing up in that adversity made me really question my worth. It made me question, what am I going to amount to based on all that has happened? Two of my brothers at this point have passed away from drug abuse. I have a sister that is somewhat estranged from the family. My dad just passed away about a month ago. My mom died 12 years ago. It's been, the family kind of fell apart, right? So what I chose for myself was to find help, find guidance, find
A different path.
just a path for me that would reflect that fire, reflect that inner light versus dim it out. And I think we all have that choice, and that is why I do the work that I do. it is greatly rewarding, but it's also healed my own life. And so heal people.
Right.
And I find it incredible and unbelievable, actually, that I'm the one that made it out. And, I think we continue to learn all the way to our passing, to our old age, if that's what we're choosing. And so I'm really happy to be here with you today to kind of deep dive into what hypnosis is as a modality and why it has become my chosen path. But I just to answer the question of what you asked is like, I found it for me first, and then that's why I went into it as a profession.
Well, and you've worked with so many high level executives. And, what holds them back is never like their numbers, their accounting problems, their
Yep.
marketing, their SEO. What holds them back are the limiting beliefs that they hold on to, the stories that they tell. And that's
Mhm.
something that I so relate to, being a top sales professional and looking super successful on the outside and only feeling it. It was conditional, only feeling it when I had a good sale, a good month, a
Yeah.
good day. But when I didn't, when I went a few days or if it was close to the end of the month and I didn't make my numbers, that confidence was gone and this panic, would take over me. And the root of that from working with you, I know, is those limiting beliefs. So would you share a
Yeah.
little bit, like, you've worked with these like super high level executives, and yet at the end of the day, if you take off their suits and their Armani and Gucci, and we're all the same, we're all the same. We have those same fears and limitations.
Yes, and I would say now that I'm further into this work, I would even say that it goes beyond beliefs. I would call it limited identities. And, for so long, people just hustle for their worth. And as you shared it in your instance, you experienced, well, when I would have a positive outcome, something that I achieved or that I was rewarded, I could put myself on the pedestal, then it's like, okay, I can feel good enough. I can feel worthy. I can feel accomplished. But take that away and left with, again, questioning your worth. So I would say that the journey is about really getting to that core identity that is true to you. And to me, that goes beyond beliefs. I believe there's layers of self. And I developed a framework called the layers of self in my work to help people to identify themselves between, their attitude, their habits, their beliefs, and their identity. And to me, and I think too, doing the work of hypnotherapy, which just goes to the deepest levels of a person's true spirit, true confidence, that it's, I like to say it's a calm confidence in there, because it's not something that you have to go like, oh, look at me and, prove that you're a boss. But to be able to feel a heart-centeredness inside yourself that is so incredibly powerful. It is very warrior-like. And again, like you said, working with people that are in high-level positions, it has also given me an insight that I didn't have before working with executives. And what I've noticed is that really smart people can make bad decisions. Really intelligent people can still be emotionally unintelligent. Really successful people can self-sabotage. And so all of us are subjective of the stories that we entertain in
Yeah.
our own minds. And I think that's where it comes from. So the journey is to go deep within yourself, to uncover every stone and to have a better understanding of self. And to me, that has to do too with falling in love with your own brain and body, because your brain is your thoughts, your body feels those thoughts. And there we are, we're subjective to our thoughts and feelings. And that relationship is the beautiful evolution, right? We
Yeah.
have neuroplasticity. Hypnosis is neurobiological. So
Mm,
when you're doing hypnosis, you're actually affecting your entire system, your brain and your body. So that's why people do have these miraculous results, because it is hacking that system. And there's other ways of going about creating change, and that is very deep and internal. But hypnosis is a hack, and that's why I love it as a modality in working with executives.
Wow. As you were talking about like the other side, the transformation, I was like sitting up a little taller, like already connected to that highest self. It's
Yeah,
interesting that you bring this up because one of the things that I was talking about just last week is how the problem with survival mode, and it's the stories that we tell when we're in survival mode, right? Is that there's this false self that we begin identifying with.
sure. Yeah,
And when you're identified, so when you're in survival mode, deductive reasoning would say that you're not connected to your authentic self, right? And that was something that I really struggled with. I couldn't create from the deepest, most authentic part of me because I was in survival mode and connected to a false self. And that false self, again, was based on my numbers and how well I thought about
sure.
myself.
Yeah,
So, I'd love to chat with you about like when you have this loud voice inside from years of that inner critic, you're not good
mhm.
enough. Some of the common themes for me were like, I don't belong and you're not wanted here and you're not welcome here and they're going to laugh at you.
Feeling like an outsider.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah,
Yes, because I was when as an immigrant to America during the Cold War. And that is like to your point, there's so many layers of that. Like I've healed
yeah,
a lot of layers, but I noticed that it shows up in like a different mask, but it's still from that same story. So what do you
yes,
use?
yeah.
What are some of your favorite tools to start helping us tap into the power of neuroplasticity and start rewiring the brain for higher thought forms where we see ourselves as we truly are and not this fake false sense that has been lying to us for decades.
Yeah, I would say through visualization, through behavior change, meaning your habits, and doing the inner work. 4 little words: do the inner work is a beautiful thing that will set you free. And I think about Bill in a hypnotherapy session. He is a guy that runs a company. He's done really well for himself. He is the CEO. He's thought of as the boss. He's leadership. He actually saved several people's lives. It just synchronicity of the way things happen. So he had this kind of hero mentality, and yet there was a part of him that always felt stuck, that always felt scared, that always felt like, am I ever going to really figure this out? Classic imposter syndrome, right? And I actually don't like that we even have that identity now, because so many people now are identifying with imposter syndrome, which it all comes down to identity. So find productive identities. That's a side note. But this gentleman in hypnotherapy, what we do is I go after the feeling. What is the feeling that comes up that part of you reflects to you? And deep diving into the feeling, he went back to being in the basement of his house when he was a little kid, maybe 6, 7 years old, really young. And he could hear his dad yelling upstairs. Well, his dad was a raging alcoholic for his entire childhood. And so what he would do is he would go down to the basement to hide from his dad. His dad didn't abuse him. His dad loved him, but his dad haven't had an alcohol problem. And so it got really scary, because it was that, what's going to happen next? He's waiting for something scary, something bad to happen. So he'd run down to the basement and he would hide. And when he came out of that hypnotherapy session, the whole idea of it is to have a better understanding of the source. Where does this come from? Because when we feel stuck in our own minds, it's because this feeling keeps coming up. It's like, what is that feeling? Well, what I've learned through hypnotherapy is that understanding the feeling alone won't actually take the feeling away. And I think that's a misconception. A lot of people think that therapy and connecting, well, this is why I am this way, will heal it. And I don't agree. I don't agree. And you're shaking your head. You don't agree either. We need to be able to use modalities that actually release that feeling. And to me, that's, I think, where hypnosis is just so incredibly fabulous. And particularly the techniques that are used in hypnosis, the techniques that I developed as a hypnotherapist, I'm at year 27. They've
Wow.
changed over the years. And so I have my own frameworks that I've developed because I have enough experience to know what works effectively and what is just really nice guided meditation. There's a big difference. And so for him, we want to be able to release that. So it was reveal the source, release it, and then reprogram it, as you call it, rewiring it.
Yeah.
So it is neurobiological. That's what hypnosis is. And so we really are affecting the brain and body because your subconscious mind doesn't decipher between real or imagined thoughts. So we can hack that experience and be able to, in a way, really come to the and to save that little boy that's in the basement, right? It's not to just go back and bring up all these bad feelings, but it's to go back and shift the perspective.
Yeah.
And the truth is his self that he's developed, this the CEO, the boss, the man that has saved lives, that's what I had him do, is had his higher self, who he knows himself to be now, come back for that little boy.
Mm,
And I really wanted to share a male experience because he needed nurturing.
yeah.
He needed the love of his father. He needed
Yeah.
that hug. He needed that connection with the man that meant so much to him. And all of us need that, whether it's mother or father. But I had him bring his own self back to him while in a visualization, while in a hypnotic state, when your analytical mind is set aside, because that's
Yeah.
what hypnosis does, is it lights up the back brain. And then it is feeding that information to shoot through your nervous system. It's healing that information to your body through your nervous system. So he was able to come out of that experience and have a full shift, have a breakthrough, have what we would call a transformation. So to me, I also believe that the full transformation happens once he has taken that full picture into his daily habits and into his
Yeah.
new identity moving forward, because he can never be quite the same once he has saved that little boy.
Yeah. Wow.
So, right. And he said it himself. He goes, I can't tell you the many times that I felt like I was running to the basement in
Yeah.
my life
Isn't that
as an
interesting?
adult, right? With big responsibilities, with, you know, having all of these employees and all of these big responsibilities that he's chosen to show up for in life, yet part of him wants to run to the basement. And so this is a beautiful example of how we actually, create neural pathways in our brain, which is, a modality of a living organism in our head that's constantly growing. So you can use all the metaphors of dropping new seeds. We're like trees being planted. We grow new roots. We grow new branches. We, make it through the seasons of life. But I think that as your question asked was, what can we do? I think first, get that professional expertise, get that professional help, have someone guide you through these processes. I know what to do with someone that comes to me with these particular issues. I would say if you're looking to DIY it, I would say things like anything that connects the brain and body that's healing. So once you have a better understanding that this exists, that you can actually affect your neural pathways, you can affect your nervous system. One of the ways that I did it, in addition to hypnotherapy, myself, was running. I
Mm,
ran over 30 marathons. And what I noticed after the very first one, and you don't have to run 30 marathons to heal yourself,
thank
but what
you.
I noticed after running one, yeah, and this is just one way. People
Right.
do yoga, people do, I mean, there's so many different things, right? But anything that's the brain body connection. For me, running my first marathon, I used a visualization in my head around mile 20 that was completely transforming. When I got to around mile 20 of that first marathon, I was running right by SeaWorld in San Diego. I'll never forget literally the moment, the place where it is. And I still pass through it when I'm driving and I'm like, thank you. I love this. I love this place right here on this street. I was running and all of a sudden tears just came running down my face. And I think because I know what I know through the people I've worked with and the modalities that I use, I knew that I was having an experience. Tears started running down my face. My run buddy says to me, what's going on? And she immediately interprets like, I'm fearful, I'm not going to make it, which that was not what was happening at all. What was happening for me was an incredible brain body connection, a realization of, you really can do it. You have changed the course of your life, Deanna. And it was
Mm.
this moment that I was having with myself. And I thought, okay, let's just leave it all behind. Let's just imagine. Here we go back to visualization as a tool. People can DIY. I imagined in my mind the weight of all of the shit that I've been carried for so long, meaning stories I told myself, meaning things that had actually happened. Gosh, all the times feeling like I didn't belong, like you resonated with, all the times where I wondered if I was going to amount to anything as I got those stories told to me. I took all those stories and I just imagined it being like this big pile on my back. And I chose to not take it further with me. And
Mm.
so as I was running and tears were running down my face, I visualized it falling off my back. And then when I say it, this is how visualization works is you can just picture whatever your it is. And I pictured it falling off my back. And then I even literally looked back to make sure it was back there because I didn't want to keep carrying it.
Wow.
And so I was having a whole basically hypnosis session in my mind as I was running. My buddy, my running buddy, she had no idea what was going on, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to explain it to her. I just knew what I was doing. And I felt this elation. I just felt this incredible elation. Like every nerve in my body was just like woo, on fire, sparked, as we say. And I knew that running across that first marathon finish line, I didn't deserve to do anything. I didn't deserve to sabotage myself anymore. And I deserved to have an experience that was my true self running across that finish line. And
Wow.
it back there did not deserve to cross it with me.
I love that. I love that. And I love how when you started speaking about when you work with executives, do you always begin with what does it feel like? And this is
Mm-hmm.
why people need an executive coach, because I can tell you with full confidence that in my 20 plus years in business, a lot of those years in corporate, not once did any leader ever ask me, like, how does it feel inside of you? Like, what does that feel like?
Yeah,
And it's that feeling that we often, we don't give it attention. We don't know that's where it is, but that's exactly, where the root is, both on the side of the programming that's hurting us, as well as the other side of it. Like we need to
sure.
feel differently. Like that's why imagination is so powerful.
Yes, because
That's
you can,
why, yes, because
yeah,
you're literally like reverse engineering it,
it
right? Like
is.
using
It's
your
what,
body. Oh,
yeah, I mean,
sorry.
Tony Robbins did it for years and he still does. Walking on fire, it changes your state. He, gets all those people in the room and the whole point is state change. And state changes everything. And we can do that for ourselves at any time. But I think where people need to take it is to the next level, is having lasting and sustainable state change is actually going to those root experiences and shifting perspective.
Mm,
That's what hypnosis does. That's what these brain body techniques and opportunities out there do for you, is they actually change your state, your identity at the deepest levels. And I think that message is really important too for, I was going to say just our young folks right now, because we have a massive anxiety issue happening for our younger population that's in corporate, that's climbing up the ladder. uh, our teenagers that will then be entering into the workforce are having massive anxiety. And so I think a lot of people are in their subjective feelings, but they don't know what to do about it. I was just speaking with a CEO a few weeks back who owns franchises. She owns several franchises. And she says her biggest issue is her staff having anxiety. And she goes, I've created this incredible nurturing family of employees. She's got about 40. She goes, but the problem with that is they feel so comfortable as a family that they'll call me up and be like, I have anxiety. She goes, I've become their therapist. She goes, I don't know what to do because I can't possibly do that for everybody every single day. And she sees it especially with her younger employees, like the 20 to 30-year-olds. So this feeling, this subjective feeling, I want people to think of it as information to
mm,
get you where you want to go. Because remember, the process is reveal it, release it, rewire it, aka reprogram it. So the process is not done just once you've felt it. You've got to move through to the next piece of that. And to me, if you are doing things on your own, you could be doing productive journaling. And I want to be specific about what that is. It's not just journaling freehand and like pouring out your feelings. Productive journaling is pouring it all out and saying, okay, yes, I feel this way. And now what I'm going to do? What does courage say? I use prompts whenever I'm having any of my clients use journaling as a healing modality between sessions. The prompts are, what does my courage say? Because courage will immediately, it's a powerful emotion, immediately pull you out of fear. It will pull you out of fight, flight, or freeze. So what does my courage say? And then once you get into a courageous state change, right? And your body feels that as well, then you have more options because now you're thinking more clearly.
Yes. It's like
So
Einstein said, you can't solve a problem on the same
the
level
same
of
state.
thought that
Yeah.
created it. It's a state
Yeah.
of, I used to always say that all change, you can either say it requires like a fresh perspective or we have to increase our level of awareness, but something
Same
has
thing.
to shift within.
Yes.
Until that shift begins,
Yeah.
no change can occur. And it's interesting as you talk about these young, you know, team members in the workplace, because that was me. Like I ran on anxiety and I don't think people knew it because I did a really good job at masking it. And so I say that because there's the ones that we know have anxiety and then there's those super achievers that look perfect but have anxiety on the inside. And I think, and I'd love to know your thoughts here, and maybe this can be our last point, but I think that a lot of it is because they don't have the knowledge of what anxiety really is and where it comes from and their part in it, like their role and how they can transform it. I think it's really a lack of knowledge in that branch of knowledge. And that was very much my experience in the corporate workplace. Nobody ever educated me about the brain. And, you say like, right now, a lot of people know about neuroscience and neuroplasticity. And I definitely agree it's more mainstream than 15 years ago. But if I had to take like an educated guess just from asking my audience, I would say only 30% have heard of brain health and nervous system regulation and
It is
dysregulation.
relatively new. Yeah.
Yes, it's
Mhm.
still relatively new. And so I'd love to know your thoughts. Like, do you think a big thing of it is a lack of education? And then, that'd be a great way to transition into how people can get a hold of you because this is what you teach team members as a speaker and a
It
workshop
is.
facilitator
Mhm.
and a coach. So I'd love to hear your thoughts here, Deanna.
Yeah, I think that they have now the knowledge. So they are aware, and now they all call it anxiety, whereas you didn't even call it anxiety, right? You just kept it all inside because we were raised in the fake it till you make it,
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
And that was definitely corporate culture. It was definitely, where I started when I started getting on stages that's been, gosh, 1998 was the first stage I stepped onto. And I definitely took that identity on, like just fake it till you make it. But to me, and because I knew what I was doing, I really recognized that it wasn't just I learned very early to own it and not fake it. Faking it got me up there, but very quickly I learned like, okay, I'm actually practicing what I preach right now. And I am completely making mistakes and recognizing that this is part of the process. But I would say that in regards to your question and the younger folks, I think they do have knowledge, but they don't know what to do with it. So Einstein said to have knowledge is nothing at all, right? Imagination is everything. You got to take it to the next level. And being able to experience the knowledge is going to create the change, right? This is where it becomes your own process that then you go, because it's not just about, oh, I'm triggered and so I should call in sick today, right? But it's about, okay, what is triggering me that I can heal this long term? Because obviously it's just going to keep coming back until you address it. So for you, there was a lack of knowledge. Now they have the knowledge. And so I think that the next generation will actually have the whole picture. But that's why I'm here talking about it, because how wonderful is it to be able to take, I mean, here I am, I'm 55 years old, to be able to now teach this to a 9-year-old, to a 10-year-old. I have 2 9-year-old clients. And it's because they have incredibly awesome, aware parents that say, hey, let's get them a hypnotherapist. I have a boy and a girl, 9-year-old. Let's get them a hypnotherapist versus just sending them to regular therapy, not to knock that. But it is being introduced and taken seriously at a very young age. So I think it's about the experience versus the knowledge. And we all need to take that on. That's all of our own journey to take that on.
I was muted. And I think that, to your point, the knowledge is one thing, but it's really being able to take the knowledge and transform your life with it. Find the modalities that work for you. And so
Yes.
it's educating ourselves with what modalities. So it's like, here it is. What are the modalities that I'm going to use to change my
Yeah.
response? Right. And it
Mhm.
was, as Maslow explained, in every moment we can choose safety or we can choose growth. And choosing growth doesn't feel good. It's uncomfortable and it hurts and it does produce fear. But growth must be chosen over and over and over again. And fear must
Yeah.
be defeated, safety, which is essentially our response when we live in fear. So, Deanna,
I,
I'd love, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, in my clients experience peace. They don't have to go through the fear and struggle part. And I
Mm,
think that's why I love what I do the most is it creates a complete experience from the start to the end. It doesn't just take you into the revealing of your pain and leave you there and
right,
allow you to struggle, right? And I
right.
think that's a huge difference in the modality that you choose. And people should really think about that. Your hypnosis affects your insula. Your insula in your brain is responsible for self-awareness. And when your self-awareness can become evolved faster and more effectively, you really are creating change in effective ways. So I want to make sure I leave people with that, and also give them, your audience, some tools to where they can start experiencing it right away. Would that be
Well,
okay?
yeah, yeah. I love that you said peace. Like right when you said peace, I felt this wave of, because that's what it is. When you have anxiety, you have a lack of peace. So, yes, that would be wonderful. Go ahead, please.
So if anybody watching this wants to go to courageiseverything.com, I love courage. I'm in love with courage. And in fact, it's also the requirement for getting on any hypnosis stage that I'm conducting, courage, or whether you're, in my office in my hypnotherapy chair. But courageiseverything.com, and I have a variety of hypnosis sessions that are audios that people can download and start listening, so that you can get that introductory experience of what it's like to go into the state, change your state, just like we talked about, and then impart those positive suggestions. One of the things that I love about the way that I do hypnosis is that I like it to be ambiguous. I'm not telling you how to feel
Yeah.
or telling you what to do or telling you how to think. I'm opening your mind so that you can connect with your home inside yourself that is of your higher thinking, feelings, and actions. So go to courageiseverything.com and start checking those out, and bringing them into the experience of your life.
I love it. And I'll put it in the show notes for sure. And Deanna, if anybody wants to learn more about you or connect with you, what would be the best way to connect with you?
They can go right there to that URL at courageiseverything.com. You can connect to all I have to offer, and I have a lot of education on my
Awesome.
website as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, as always, it's been such a joy. Thank you for everything you do, all the lives that you are transforming, and all the wisdom that you dropped here today. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, please make sure to give us a thumbs up and hit the bell, and make sure to subscribe here on the Awakening Show. We are exploring how our early programming, our early experiences often limit who we are in our adult lives, and how to break free of yesterday so you can thrive today. Thank you so much. And until next week, be blessed.